Hey guys. So I wanted to go over the circle vocabulary notes. Just know that a lot of these will have multiple correct answers. And I will explain that whenever you do your practice or when you do your test, just like at the very beginning of the year. You just only have to write one answer. You don't have to write all of the ones that you see. You just need to write one. Now, as far as this circle, to name it, it is called circle F, and we write that like this with a circle with a dot and then an F in the middle. That is the circle symbol for geometry. That is the only answer for this. And you always use the center of the circle whenever you do that. So that kind of answers our next one, which is center, and that is point F. Now, the radius, there are multiple answers. This is a radius. Y'all should all know what this is by now. This is a radius, and this is a radius. So it does have all of those as correct answers. So red would be EF. Blue would be DF. And then green would be CF. But remember, you only really have to write one of those whenever you're doing problems. On your notes, I would like you to put all three. Okay, chords. Chords are any lines that go from one end of the circle to the other. So the diameter is actually a chord. It is just a special chord, just like a square is a special parallelogram. It's still a parallelogram, and it's still a rectangle, and it's still a rhombus, but it is a special one of those things. So the diameter is a special chord. And then the other chords, BC, just BC, they're all segments because they have to have a starting and an ending point. So BC is a chord, and so is ED. That is also a chord, but not the arrows, just where it starts and stops inside the circle. And yes, that does make a difference because when it goes outside the circle, it's called something different. So BC, remember all of these are segments. They are not lines. CE, that's my red one. First one was blue one. Next one was red one. And then my green one is DE. All right, then of course your diameter is right there through the center, and it's CE. Some people get confused and will put CF because I had told you guys before that you could name a line that way, and you can't, but not segments. Segments have to have a starting and an ending point. So the letters you use on a segment has to be where it starts and ends. All right, secants. Those are chords that go outside of the circle. So this guy here is a perfect example of a secant because it does have arrows on both sides. However, it is not the only secant. This is also technically a secant because it goes on the outside of the circle. It's not a good representation because, first of all, only one side goes out. And second of all, it is a segment. It has starting and stop points, whereas secants are typically lines. So the red one is a much better representation. So DE, and they are typically lines. But AC is a segment, but is still considered a secant because it goes outside of the circle. All right, next one, a tangent line. So a tangent line is only outside of the circle, but touches it once at one point. So this right here is my tangent line. Again, this isn't a perfect representation because it only has an arrow at one end, and typically tangents are lines. This one happens to be a ray. So this one can only be named AE. It cannot be named EA. Just to remind you guys, you have to start the first letter it starts with has to be the starting point of that ray. However, tangents are usually lines. They are not usually rays. All right, then we have the point of tangency, which is just the point where that tangent line touches the circle. So it's point E. Next, we have a central angle, and there are a lot of central angles on here. So you have EFD, so this angle. You have DFC, you have this angle. And also one that most people don't consider is EFC is also an angle. It is a straight angle, but it is an angle. So all of those are central angles. They are angles where its vertex is the center. So all of these angles, the pointy part or the part that where it bends is at the center, which means all of the angle names for this circle should have F as their middle letter because that's the center. It would have to have F as the middle letter for it to be a central angle. So angle DFE, that is my red one. My blue one is angle DFC. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Also, remember, angles can be written in reverse, so that blue angle could also be CFD. And then my green angle is CFE. All right, inscribed angles are angles where the vertex touches the outside of the circle. So this is an inscribed angle. So this one here, where that vertex touches the outside of the circle. And so is this one, because that vertex touches the outside of the circle. You could use the letter F to name these angles. We just don't traditionally do that. So usually these angles would be called CED. It could also be called FED. It would still be, well, you know what? It's supposed to go from the outside. So FED would not be right. It'd have to be CED. And then we have BCE. That's my blue one. And this middle letter should be a point that is on the outside of the circle for it to be an inscribed angle. All right, there are many arcs on this circle. An arc is just a portion of the circumference. And we kind of went over that when we did circumference and area of a circle, because we did arc length. And I told y'all it was like a piece of pizza or a piece of pie. It's the crust of that. It's just a part of the circumference of the circle. So this could be an arc. This could be an arc. But it doesn't have to start and stop at just one point, because this could also be an arc as well that goes all the way around like that. So there are many, way too many that I could list even several of these. So I'm going to stop there. But for arcs, this is something you haven't seen before. You put an arc over the top like that. So that's my red arc. My green arc would be CD. And then my blue arc, we're going to show you how to name that one whenever we talk about that big type of arc. So a minor arc is an arc that is less than 180 degrees. It is any arc that's less than 180 degrees. So both DE and CD from our last one are specifically minor arcs. All the arcs are grouped together to just be called an arc, but then these three are specifics. So those two are specifically minor arcs, and you can always tell a minor arc because it only uses 2 letters to name it every single time. Anytime that it's over 180 degrees, you're going to have to use 3 letters to name it. So a major arc is like that blue one I just did, and I'll do it again. So this one has to be named with 3 letters. And I'll show you why in just a second. So your first and last letter has to be the end points for your arc. But then you choose either one. It doesn't matter which one of these you choose. You just pick one and you put it in the middle. I'm going to do DEC just because it sort of spells deck. But, you know, whatever. You could also do KED, or you could do CBD or DBC, whatever. So I'm going to call it deck like a pool deck. And then an arc over it. Now, the reason why we do that is because, if we just wrote DC, like just DC by itself, everybody would normally go the shortest distance and it would be that, which is not what that arc was. So instead, what you're supposed to go is go from D to E first. So we go from D to E, D to E, and then you're supposed to, sorry, I held that line too long that it made a straight line. Okay, you go to D to E, and then you go from E to C in the same direction. So now I keep going that same direction until I touch C, and then I stop. So that's how you know the arc that it's talking about. Whatever letter it starts with, you start there. You go the shortest distance towards the next letter, and then you continue in that same direction to that third letter. And of course, there are many other major arcs that I could make. This is, you could go around this way. No, that would be 180. That way. And it would be a major arc. So there are multiples. I'm just going to name one. All right. Then lastly is a semicircle. So semicircles are half of a circle. Y'all should know that by now. And they are always named by 3 letters because you don't know if they're talking about this part of the semicircle or this part of the semicircle. You don't know. So you have to name it with 3 letters so that you know which part of it it's talking about. So my red one would be CBE or EBC. It could be either. And then my blue one would be CDE or EDC. It doesn't matter the direction. You just have to make sure that your first and last letters are the endpoints of that arc. So that's why the first and last letters of both of those arcs are the same, because they have the same endpoints. But then the middle letter tells you whether it's going to the bottom or to the top. I think that's it. Yep, that's it.